Welcome to the Teen Life Podcast, where we believe that teenagers are not a problem to be solved. We are here to help you equip teenagers through the power of connection. I'm Karlie Duke, and I'm here with my co-host, Chris Robey.
Hey, guys. So, Karlie, I feel like I'm jumping right in here, but...
Oh, I'm here for it. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, because our topic this week came to me because of an experience, and like, it was one of those weird moments that we have in life where you experience something and then you like read something like that same day, like, oh, I just had that. Right. And so maybe it's some bias that's involved. But this made a lot of sense to me. So a couple weeks ago, I woke up early and I was like, you know what? I've got 1,000 emails to send. I got to just grind out some of that stuff. And we all have jobs that we have to do that from time to time where you just have lots of communications. And so like, I literally spent the whole day just emailing, responding. I don't think I got up out of my seat that day. So nothing that would have necessarily made me tired. But after I turned my computer off that day, I felt exhausted, just flat out whipped. And like nothing should have, I didn't do anything to exert myself physically. And so I was kind of, you kind of beat yourself up, right? Like if I'm in that bad a shape that I'm winded after email, that's bad news. And so, I don't know, I guess I was doing more screen time because I came across this article, later that day. It was this idea of, it was called screen apnea. And there was this idea that, and I'll let you kind of get into the specifics of kind of how they figured this out. But it's this idea that whenever you're on screens a lot, emailing, texting, anything that's kind of screen based, you don't breathe very well. And that takes a toll on your body. Yeah.
So Chris sent me this New York Times article and was like, hey, look into this. And it is super fascinating, Chris. It really is very cool. And so just to kind of hit a highlight reel, I'll obviously link the article if you want to go read the whole thing. But in 2007, Linda Stone, who was a former Microsoft executive, did an experiment, kind of I would say an informal experiment, with like 200 of her friends and family, and noticed that her breathing, after she noticed that her breathing was changing while she was checking email. So out of these 200 people, around 80% periodically held their breath or altered their breathing while they were checking email. And she originally called it email apnea, but later she expanded it to screen apnea because she kind of found across the board, like whether it's text or email, if you're looking at your screen, your breathing changes and people tend to kind of like hold their breath.
That's fascinating. And if anyone's ever experienced like sleep apnea before, or know someone who does, like if they don't get that treated, they don't sleep, they don't rest, and they actually wake up more exhausted than, so basically bottom line is breathing is really important.
Yeah. And so this is really fascinating that like I read that screen apnea is a manifestation of the body's stress response. So when we're faced with that kind of stimulus or stimuli, our nervous system looks for signals to kind of decide, is this a threat or am I okay? And all that focus on, am I threatened or not, requires a lot of mental effort. And so it kind of kicks off this chain where you're breathing shallower, your heart rate slows down, and like you're trying to keep yourself calm, but that actually exerts a lot of energy, which you would think, like you were saying, like you were just sitting still, it shouldn't have been that big of a deal. But if you're kicking in the screen apnea, you'll actually be more tired because of what your body's trying to do.
And that makes a lot of sense if you think about any time you've faced like a real threat, maybe not from an email, but like whenever you're at a heightened response and you are conscious enough to say, play it cool and try to keep everything together, you will pay for that eventually, right? Like eventually your body will respond to that. Like where you kind of, people will talk about, break down crying after, a really stressful situation that you had to stay calm and you had to be cool and collected. The old term is the body keeps score, right? Like you're gonna have that reaction at some point. And so, if you are this extended period of answering emails or text or having to make decisions over those, or being bombarded with certain things, and you're trying to keep yourself cool through that, and it's something that your body is doing and you don't even notice it.
Right. And so it's kind of that idea that, like, especially when you get an email or text, you stop, you read it, and then your brain is trying to come up with a response.
Hmm.
And this article also said that the more unexpected the stimulus is, then like the greater it's going to perceive it as a threat.
Huh.
So if it's something unexpected, like if you get like an out of the blue text from someone, you're like, oh my goodness, how do I respond? Like that is going to be perceived threat. And when I think about this in the context of teenagers, now teenagers have email, we know this, but this is probably way more relevant to them in the text setting and the notifications.
Right.
So when they have notifications turned on their phone and someone comments that they didn't know who commented, or someone friends them that they're like surprised by that, that can trigger the screen apnea. Or say a crush texts them. Their
Hmm.
body is going to go into this, like, is this a threat? What do I do? And freeze. And it's going to impact how they're breathing, which is
Hmm.
just like really weird. But I can totally see how this impacts teenagers a lot, especially with how much they're on their phones.
Absolutely. And there's consequences to this. Like we said,
Mm-hmm.
if your nervous system is in a constant state of threat. So if a student has notifications for everything popping up. So I can even imagine if you're following a sports team you care about and, they're losing and you keep getting notifications, how stressful that might be. Or, like you said, it's a crush or it's an important message, or if it's just someone kind of bombing you out of the blue,
Yeah.
that can really cause that kind of stress response. And those hours of shallow breathing, and like I said, the whole reason that I sent this to you was like, I just experienced this.
Mm-hmm.
It can just leave you feeling so exhausted, and your body needs to be able to circulate the air in an appropriate way for your body to function correctly. And if you're just breathing shallow, only using a small part of your lungs, you're not really able to do that, and you'll feel exhausted.
Right. So at the end of the episode in the tip section, we're going to come back to tips for actually breathing well, especially in the context of screen apnea. So stick around for that. But maybe bring this up to your teenager. Like I said, it's really fascinating. So ask them, like, hey, have you ever noticed that? Have you ever noticed when you're on your phone for a long period of time that you're tired after? Or have you ever noticed when you get stressed about a text or an email that your breathing changes?
Hmm.
Just start that conversation and see what they think. I think you might be surprised and maybe interested in what they have to say. Okay, Chris, for the trend this week, we were gone for a long time. I
Mm-hmm.
was gone for a long time. And then we did our Diverse Families series, which people still need to listen to if they haven't, because they're really cool interviews. But I wanted to do a summer catch up. Even though it's September, I still think it's worth it to kind of be like, okay, what did we miss over those summer months that our audience needs to be aware of? Because some really big and cool things happened.
Well, and to think about it too, I mean, we've not had great summers in the last few years, just with COVID and just not great movies, and this feels like one of those summers where you kind of expect big trends to happen, and I feel like this was definitely a summer full of those.
It was a summer full of heat, too.
Mm,
Just to kick us off of, it has been brutal, especially in Texas where we are. But
miserable.
but the first one I want to talk about, Chris, just because I think this might be the biggest, honestly, is Barbenheimer.
Just incredible.
Do you want to explain, or do you want me to explain for our people who might not know what that is?
You might be better at it, but so I'll add commentary. Why don't you describe
Okay.
what Barbenheimer is?
So Barbenheimer is the phrase that I don't know who coined it.
Mm-mm.
That was the day that the Barbie movie and Oppenheimer released on the same day in
Mm-hmm.
July, I believe. And so they called it Barbenheimer, kind of instead of people pitting against each other of which one are you going to watch. It was kind of this cultural phenomenon where they were encouraging people to go watch both,
Mm-hmm.
even though the movies were very different. I saw TikToks and Instagrams of people like dressing up for both.
Mm-hmm.
So they would wear like trench coats and stuff in the morning and go see Oppenheimer. Then they go to lunch and then they put on their pink and go see Barbie. And it
Mm-hmm.
was just this whole thing of like, hey, I'm going to spend a full day at the movie and going to see these two really incredible movies.
Yeah, and it's been a while since you've had two kind of cultural phenomenons on the
Mm-hmm.
same weekend like this, and really cultural phenomenons that are very different. Like, if you've seen these movies, very different tones, very different feel. I mean, Barbie definitely had some heavier tones to it, but just kind of approached it in a lighter, more fun way. But Oppenheimer was intense. I mean, there was just a lot going on there for sure. So I think it was really funny that people chose to double feature those on those weekends.
It was. And so for a stat, because I always have to bring a stat, on opening weekend, Barbie wound up earning $162 million domestically. Oppenheimer came in at $82.5 million.
Wow.
And so, both just really big, especially if you look at what movies have been doing recently. This was huge for both of these movies to do so well on opening weekend. They continued to do well. Now, I'll be honest, I only saw Barbie. I did not see Oppenheimer.
Hang on, Karlie. So are we having a Top Gun discussion here?
We might be.
Because I want a listening audience who tends to kick me about this. I've seen both.
Oh, now, Chris.
Yes. Oppenheimer was first. And then actually like 2 weekends ago, my wife and I saw Barbie. And so I'm pretty proud that we did not engage with Barbenheimer in real time.
You didn't do it on the same day.
No. There's no way these days. Especially with Oppenheimer's a 3-hour movie. Like it's a long movie. But I got to see both and thoroughly enjoyed both. I was excited about Oppenheimer because I'm a big Christopher Nolan fan. Just the way he does movies, I love it. And so I actually went on my own. I don't usually do that, but no one else was interested. So I went late one night and watched it, and it was great. But really enjoyed Barbie too. I was not had zero expectations, and it was actually like, this is really clever.
It was. Now, my understanding of Oppenheimer, my husband saw it and he loved it. He's a history guy, so he was really into it. But I do know there were some scenes that probably are not appropriate for teenagers, or you definitely would want to talk about with your teenagers, maybe if they're older, if they see it. So keep that on your radar. Barbie was fun. It really was just fun. I do think it was probably geared more towards like my generation and above of people who played with Barbies. You know what I mean? Like it was a young movie, but I don't think it was geared towards teenagers would be my guess.
No, but I would say if you have teenagers who are kind of culturally engaged, there was a lot of big themes of what, people are talking about and dealing with from a societal social angle. It was funny as my wife grew up in out in the country and probably played more in the dirt than with toys, but she was they were putting Barbies up there. She's like, I had that one, and she was so excited about it. So I was like, that's good for you. That's awesome.
That's what I mean. It was super fun, and I think definitely worth seeing. And there is a monologue in there that was just incredible, especially as a mom and as a woman that was like, okay.
Oh, you mean the one that my wife literally broke out in applause by herself in the theater? Yeah, that one. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, it was really like she was really excited about that. So
I love it. Okay. So another movie that came out, and I have not seen this one. I'll be surprised if you saw this one, Chris, but maybe I'm wrong, is Red, White, and Royal Blue.
You guessed right.
Okay. That's what I thought. So this is a book-based LGBTQ rom-com. I've heard of the book. I didn't even know they were coming out with a movie. It's on Amazon Prime. It is rated R. There are some sex scenes in it. There's language. There's drinking. I got all of this from, why did I just blank on what it's called? Chris, what's the Common Sense Media. Thank you.
There we go. Yeah.
Hello. I got it. I got there. So this is from Common Sense Media because like I said, I did not read it. But the reason I bring it up is because I have seen teenagers posting about the book and kind of gearing this book towards teenagers. So if your teenager read the book, they might be wanting to watch the movie. And so it's something to ask about. The book is by Casey McQuiston, and it does say it's 18 and over. But like I said, I saw lots of teens. It's kind of a fun rom-com from my understanding. So
this is the movie, not a TV show, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Movie and a book.
Gotcha.
So just might be worth asking your teen about, especially if you have Amazon Prime, something to watch out for that they might be watching if it's something you don't want them to watch. Speaking of Amazon Prime, this one's a TV show. Man, Prime was doing a lot for teens this summer, I guess.
Been pretty busy.
The Summer I Turned Pretty is a TV show. I can't remember. I'd have to go back and look. I feel like we might have talked about this when season 1 came out.
I think we did.
But this is another series that's based on a teen and YA book series by Jenny Han. And so this book series was geared towards teenagers. I read the books. They were super cute, fun, summery. She's the one who also wrote To All the Boys I Loved Before, which is a Netflix movie series.
Mm-hmm.
And so lots of content geared towards teens. And season 2 came out this summer on Prime. It's cute, it's summery, but it has a lot of language. I've watched both seasons, and I don't remember it as much in the first, but I'm sure it was there. But this season had a lot of F words, like unnecessary F words, in my opinion. There's also drinking, smoking, partying, and almost kind of that, which you see a lot in teen shows and movies, but kind of almost in like saying it's cool.
Right.
If the parents are okay with it, they don't really get in trouble. And so this is another one that if your teen is watching it, I'm sure this one's TV 14. I don't think it would be mature, but
Right.
Be on the lookout for that. Next is, I got this one from Tobin, and I'm not surprised because he's a Swiftie at heart.
He is.
Like me. But Speak Now, Taylor's version came out this summer. Now, Chris,
tell me more.
We've talked about Taylor, but I don't know how closely you follow her, and my guess is just not a lot.
Oh, just like you judging by the blank look in my face?
Maybe.
Okay. Yeah. No,
Maybe,
I will say having a 7, almost 8-year-old daughter, she's making the rotation a little bit more.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Especially her early stuff is so fun for kids. My 6-year-old says Taylor Swift is his favorite right now. Now, we do have to be careful because some of her later stuff has a little more explicit language, but we just filter that out. Mm-hmm. But this is Taylor's third Taylor's version release. And so I feel like we maybe talked about this, but what she's doing is someone bought her music. Scooter Braun bought her music years ago. And so she is re-recording all of her stuff so she gets to keep it, basically, since he owns some of her music. And so this is the third release of Taylor's version. It's by far the most popular. Speak Now. Oh, I should have written this down. I think it originally came out like around 2010, 2012, somewhere in there. And so she went back and recorded everything, but she also released 6 tracks from the vault. So these are brand new songs that have never been anywhere. With its release, she had 4 albums in the Billboard Top 10. At the same time, it's the first living artist since 1966.
Wow.
To do that. And so it's so just as far as like a cultural moment, this one was pretty big. And I think we are going to, in a few weeks, talk more about her Eras tour. So that's coming up. Stay tuned for that. But I just wanted to hit on the Speak Now because that was a big thing that happened this summer. Mm-hmm. Now, Chris, I do think you'll have more to say about this next one, which is, and this isn't fully summer, but I feel like the bulk of it was in the summer, which is the baseball pitch clock.
I feel like you added this just for me, and I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, and I'll speak to this. So if you've ever watched baseball and hated it, it's usually because it's just too long and boring. Mm-hmm. And so what they're trying to do is make it a little quicker. So if you watch basketball, there's shot clocks, and NFL, you have play clocks, and it's basically a way that baseball players can keep the game moving. And so it's a 20-second clock. Well, it's a 15-second clock if there's no runners on base, and 20 seconds if there are runners on base. And so basically once the pitcher gets the ball and touches the rubber, the 20-second clock starts, and the batter has to engage with the pitcher with 8 seconds left, essentially. So there's some consequences for it. Obviously, if you don't make it, there's a ball awarded to the batter if the pitcher doesn't pitch within 20 seconds, and the player gets a strike if they don't engage within 8 seconds. So it actually adds a new element. I saw a player strike out on a pitch clock violation a couple of days ago. It was really strange. Wow. Doesn't happen often, but if you do go to major league games, if you live close to MLB City, it makes the game a lot quicker, a lot more family friendly, because you can kind of get in and out in like 2.5 hours, like a normal football game or a basketball game, something like that. So it's much better than 3.5 to 4 hours as it used to be. So that's been a great development for any baseball fan, or maybe would be baseball fan.
Okay, this is one that me and you talked about this a few weeks ago, Chris, and so I added it too. And this is a weird trend, but artists are getting hit at concerts.
Wow.
And that's a trend. And I listed some for like me and Chris to see, and I'll hit them really quick. But like Cardi B got hit by a drink. Afterwards, I'm pretty sure she threw her mic into the audience because she was so frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Harry Styles got hit in the face. I feel like he gets stuff thrown at him a lot, and a lot of times he catches it. I saw a great compilation video, if you ever want to see it, of like him catching things that are thrown at him, but he got hit in the face at a concert this summer. Drake got hit by a cell phone.
Wow.
BB Rexa got hit in the face by a cell phone. She had to be taken to the hospital.
Wow.
I saw pictures of her bruised eye. I can't remember if she had to get stitches or not, but it wasn't just like a, oops, that hurt. Like it was a really big deal. And then Kelsey Ballerini got hit in the face with a bracelet recently too, and kind of had to stop the concert.
That's horrible.
And it's just really interesting because, I mean, I don't feel like that should be allowed or okay at a concert of they're performing and aren't looking for things to be flying at them.
Mm-hmm.
And other artists are weighing in of like, if this happened to me, here's what I do, or you better not do this to me. And so it's something that is really fascinating. That's a trend, but I also hate it's not a super fun trend.
That's horrible.
And then finally, have you tried, Chris, the new Chick-fil-A sandwich? Have you heard about this?
I've heard about it. Probably going to pass.
No, Chris. Okay. I've had it several times. It's so good. So Chick-fil-A just came out with a pimento cheese sandwich that is pimento cheese, honey, and jalapenos on their chicken sandwich.
So you're not going to be like Priscilla, who's going to order it without the pimento cheese?
No. Yeah. No, she said she wasn't going to order it with jalapenos or pimento cheese.
That's
in
what
which
it was.
case, just get a sandwich and add honey to it yourself.
Yeah. We all know our sweet Priscilla from Teen Life. She's been on a few podcasts. That was her opinion on the matter.
Now, I did not do the jalapenos, but I've heard it's really good with also a spicy chicken fillet. So
Man.
if you really like heat, go for it. But something to try this summer, that is, it says it's limited time only. So check it out. Okay, for the tip, Chris, let's go back to some breathing habits. And I will link a former episode that we did on breathing techniques, but these are more just like your everyday general, like not necessarily breathing techniques, but how to combat that screen apnea thing. And so the first one is set up breath reminders, which sounds silly, but if you're sitting down to email, maybe set a timer to remind yourself to take a deep breath. Or just like, hey, every time I move to a new email, I'm going to take 5 deep breaths, something like that, that reminds you to breathe. Yeah. Another thing is to breathe through your nose. And so everything I've read says that you take deeper breaths when you breathe through your nose and your mouth.
Right.
And so close your mouth when you're looking at your phone or
your body has to work a little harder too when you breathe through your nose. So you know, it's not going to be satisfied with just a shallow breath through your nose. And so you're going to breathe deeper.
Another thing I saw is if you notice that you're breathing shallowly, try like sighing audibly. So make a big sigh and it resets your breathing pattern. And so that's an easy little tip and trick to do. I also saw that using larger screens when possible helps because it takes more focus to look at a smaller screen. So where this might apply to teenagers is encourage them to watch TV on the TV and not on their phone.
That makes sense.
Or if they're having to do a lot of schoolwork, encourage them to go to the computer and not check email on their phone. So little things like that.
Right.
And then finally, take a screen break. Make sure there are times during the day where you actually take a break. Because I know if you're anything like me, and probably your teenagers too, when I take a break from email, I'm looking at my phone.
Right. From one to the other.
Yeah. Or if I'm taking a break from my phone, I'm watching TV. Like we're just trading screens. And so actually take time every single day to say, I'm putting all the screens away, listen to music or read a book, something like that, that's going to take your mind off of it.